Welcome into Buckeye Beat. I'm Noah Weiskopf, joined here as always by Tyler Danburg. We're not in the studio this time though. We're actually in Los Angeles ahead of this Rose Bowl game between Ohio State and Oregon. To start this episode, let's talk about the team's first meeting, right? Ohio State previously traveled to Eugene, Oregon, October 12th, fell to the Ducks 32-31 in heartbreaking fashion as Will Howard slid just a second too late. They would have attempted a game-winning field goal, but what's the biggest takeaway for you, Tyler, in terms of looking at this game and watching it back to the previous loss?
From that game, Noah, you can tell that Ohio State going into the Rose Bowl, they need to get pressure. Now, Dylan Gabriel, heading into his FBS record 63rd career start, he gets the ball out quickly. And you saw that in the game on October 12th. Ohio State did not generate a sack, but since then, they've been an incredibly efficient pass rushing team, and they've gotten the sack numbers to boot. But they're going to have to put that together, and that was one of my biggest takeaways from that Oregon loss.
And one of the most important games that we're looking at now is this previous game, Ohio State's previous outing against Tennessee in the first round of the playoffs at home, totally dominated. I don't know if anyone could have seen that coming, but they came out on fire. They ended the game on fire, ended up playing four different quarterbacks en route to that win, 42-17. Ohio State really needs to emulate that. They need to carry that momentum over the defensive line. They have to carry that momentum over as well as the offense as a whole. Jeremiah Smith had his fair share of touchdowns. Travion Henderson found the end zone. Quinshon Judkins, they have to continue to rely on these playmakers to win this game. But in terms of a key player, who are you watching for on this Oregon team tomorrow against Ohio State?
This Ducks defensive line has a lot of stars and a lot of guys that you can choose from. Derek Harmon, Jordan Birch, two all Big Ten guys. The other one is Mateo Uiagalelei from St. John's Bosco Prep in Southern California. He's a havoc wreaker. He had two TFLs and a sack against Ohio State in the last matchup. He's got 10.5 sacks, 12 TFLs on the year. Most sacks by a Duck since DeForest Buckner, great NFL defensive end. And then Kayvon Thibodeau was the last one to have more TFLs in Oregon history. And he's a great defensive end for the New York Giants. Uiagalelei, brother of DJ Uiagalelei, he's a guy to keep an eye on defense for Oregon.
And then for Ohio State, there's a matter of a bunch of players you can pick from as a key here. But I'm going to go with the basic route and say Will Howard is the key player that I'm watching for. They need him to have a really good game to have a chance to win this one. I think that Will Howard, when he was brought here originally, he knew, and Ohio State knew, that he was not asked to be some superhero. He was asked to play his game, play his style, and distribute the football to the amount of receiving threats and weapons that this Ohio State offense has. So I think Will Howard needing to play a mistake-free game, and I think if he can, then I think this Ohio State team has a really good chance to advance. But in terms of key to victories, Tyler, what do you think is the biggest key in this game for whoever's going to win?
It's for Ohio State secondary to limit the passing attack of Oregon. The Ducks have a lot of weapons. The Buckeyes have a lot of weapons. And Ohio State is coming off a game against Tennessee where it held the Vols to 104 passing yards and broke up 9 passes. Those are the most PDUs in a Buckeyes game since 2019. They're getting numbers on the football, and they're going to have to play tight against guys like Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, Evan Stewart, who had 149 yards in that win against Ohio State back on October 12th. And if they can do that, limit the pass and break up passes as well, get the hands out of Oregon's talented receivers, a good thing might happen.
100%. And then the other key that I'm looking for here is Ohio State's offensive line. How are they going to hold up against a really, really talented Oregon front like we talked about? But we haven't talked a lot about Jordan Birch, who did not play against Ohio State in the first matchup due to injury. Now he's back. And the Ohio State players, from having talked to them at Media Day, they certainly have their eyes on him, and they know that they're going to have to contain him. 6'6", a big, big threat to them. And this Ohio State offensive line, as we know, has been banged up all season. So we're going to have to see if they're able to hold up against a really talented Oregon front. We know that in that first matchup, Josh Simmons went out with a season-ending injury. We know since then Seth McLaughlin has went out. So they have adversity that they've had to face. We'll see if they can hold up. But ultimately, who do you think is going to win this game, Tyler?
I think it's going to be Ohio State 35-31. Ryan Day talks a lot about leaving no doubt. And you saw a lot of that in that first quarter of the Tennessee game when Ohio State scored 21 unanswered. That first drive when they went no huddle, which is something they usually don't always do with Chip Kelly in the first quarter, and then the next play, boom, 20-plus yard touchdown to Jeremiah Smith. You can see glimpses that they're trying to play football where they don't want to leave any regrets out on the field, and I think they're going to do that. Oregon is a talented football team. Dan Lanning is one of the best young, if not the best young, bright-minded football coach in the college game, but Ohio State does just a little bit more in this game to prevail in the 111th Rose Bowl game. I think also, too, Donovan Jackson now being at left tackle and there being slightly more stability on the offensive line now that they've been able to play with this combination the last couple of games, that could be beneficial because Oregon in that first quarter in Eugene, down goes down goes Josh Simmons, then Zen Mahalski steps in. Then now there's a lot going on. But now you have allowed your contingency plan on the offensive line about 3 weeks of an aging process, and you got your All-American left guard turned left tackle helping steer that offensive line.
Well, I can absolutely see that happening with an Ohio State win, but I can also absolutely see Oregon escaping this one with a win. Like you said, super talented team, haven't lost a game all year, and then we saw what they did to Penn State in the Big Ten Championship. Now, I think that Oregon is going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. Like I said, I think it's going to come down to the last possession. But for me, I haven't been able to steer away from picking Oregon for this game for the reason of needing to see Ohio State's defense against a really, really good offensive opponent. We've seen them dominate some not so great offenses. We saw them, for the most part, dominate Penn State, but we haven't seen them play a really, really good game in this Jim Knowles-led defense against a really high-flying opponent. So until I see that, I'm not too confident in picking Ohio State, while I do think that whichever team wins this game has a really good chance to go on and win a national championship. So if Ohio State can escape this game, I think it's probably going to be one of the toughest ones they'll face in their road to a potential national championship. Like I said, though, you could flip a coin, heads being Oregon, tails being Ohio State, and whoever it lands on, I think, really could win this game. It's going to come down to the wire. But that'll do it for another episode of Buckeye Beat. Thanks for joining us. We're again here from the Rose Bowl. So follow along with our coverage at the Lantern, at SGSR, and thanks for tuning in.